Our differences, I think, in terms of our team and our organization's values are so dramatically different. Young men who are peacefully protesting police brutality and racism. This has been very difficult for us to have to reconcile.
No, that was the first thing that when I woke up and saw what he said about Steph Curry. First of all, he doesn't understand the power that he has for being the leader of this beautiful country. He doesn't understand how many kids, no matter the race, look up to the president of the United States for guidance, for leadership.
When Kareem Abdul-Jabbar called Donald Trump a frat house partier instead of a president, he was not alone. 5 of the biggest names in basketball history stood up and said no. LeBron James called him a bum on Twitter. Stephen Curry refused to shake his hand at the White House. Steve Kerr said his policies were built on fear. Greg Popovich called him a soulless coward. And Kareem said he was the biggest enemy to the Constitution. These were not random outbursts. These were calculated public takedowns by men who had millions of followers and nothing to lose. They used their platforms to challenge a sitting president in ways America had never seen before. Every word they said was on the record. Every insult was documented. Every criticism was verified. This is the story of how the NBA turned into a battleground, and how 5 legends made it their mission to speak truth to power. If you're enjoying this story, use the hype feature and give hype to this video. LeBron James saw it coming before most people did. He watched Trump use sports as a weapon. He watched him turn athletes into villains, and he refused to stay quiet. The breaking point came in September 2017. The Golden State Warriors had just won the NBA championship. Stephen Curry said he was not sure he wanted to go to the traditional White House visit. He said Trump had failed to say the right things at the right times. Trump did not like that, so he fired off a tweet saying the invitation was withdrawn. That had never happened before. A sitting president had never uninvited a championship team. LeBron saw the tweet and responded immediately. He called Trump a bum. He said going to the White House was a great honor until you showed up. It was direct, it was personal, and it went viral. The tweet got millions of likes. It became one of the most famous sports tweets in history. But for LeBron, it was not just about defending Curry. It was about defending what sports represented. He believed sports brought people together. Trump was using sports to tear people apart. The following year, LeBron went even deeper. In July 2018, he opened a school in his hometown of Akron, Ohio. It was called the I Promise School. It was designed for at-risk kids. It gave them free meals, free uniforms, and guaranteed college tuition. LeBron sat down with CNN's Don Lemon to talk about the school, but the conversation quickly turned to Trump. LeBron said the president was using sports to divide the country. He pointed to the controversy over NFL players kneeling during the national anthem. Trump had called those players sons of bitches. LeBron said Trump was using the protests to create an US versus them mentality. He said the president was weaponizing race and sports for political gain. LeBron also shared something personal. He said sports was the first place he was ever around white people. It was where he learned about them. It was where he built friendships across racial lines. He said sports was supposed to be a unifying force. Trump was trying to destroy that. The interview made headlines, and Trump responded by insulting LeBron's intelligence. He said LeBron was dumb. He also went after Don Lemon. It was a pattern. Trump attacked prominent black men and questioned their intelligence. Many saw it as a racial dog whistle, but LeBron did not back down. He kept building schools. He kept speaking out, and he made it clear he would never sit across from Trump in the White House. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar took a different approach. He was older, he was more intellectual, and he had been writing about politics for decades. But when Trump entered the race in 2015, Kareem saw something dangerous. In September of that year, he wrote an op-ed for the Washington Post. He compared Trump to a frat house partier. He said Trump was buffoonishly entertaining at first, but eventually the party would end. People would realize the damage he caused. Kareem said Trump's wealth had made him arrogant. He said it made Trump think he did not need actual policies. He said Trump was impervious to criticism and disconnected from reality. But the most serious charge was about the Constitution. Kareem said Trump was attacking the First Amendment. He pointed to specific examples. Trump had ejected journalist Jorge Ramos from a press conference. He had gone after debate moderator Megyn Kelly. Kareem wrote that the biggest enemy to the principles of the Constitution right now is Trump. That was not a throwaway line. Kareem was saying Trump was a threat to the legal framework of the United States. Trump did not let it slide. He printed out Kareem's op-ed, and he wrote a note on it by hand. He sent it back to Kareem. The note said, "Now I know why the press always treated you so badly. They could not stand you. The fact is that you don't have a clue about life. It was petty. It was personal. And it proved Kareem's point. Trump could not handle criticism." Kareem later said the note was proof that Trump lacked discipline. He said if you cheat in sports, you will cheat in other things. And Trump had been accused of cheating at golf multiple times. Kareem also wrote about political correctness. Trump and his supporters hated the term. Kareem disagreed. He said political correctness was just another word for manners. It was about treating people with dignity. Kareem argued that leaders who did not have time for sensitivity did not have time to protect people's rights under the Constitution. He said Trump's so-called straight talk was actually a tool. It distracted people from real issues. It tapped into their darkest fears about people who were different. For Kareem, this was not about politics. It was about protecting democracy. Stephen Curry did not use a lot of words, but his actions spoke volumes. After the Warriors won the championship in 2017, Curry was vocal about not wanting to visit the White House. He said he wanted to inspire some change. He said there were things happening in the country that people should not turn a blind eye to. Curry's main issue was that Trump had failed to speak out on racial justice. When Trump found out Curry was hesitating, he tweeted that the invitation was withdrawn. It was a preemptive strike, but it backfired. The Warriors responded as a team. They said it was their American right to express themselves freely. Instead of visiting the White House, they went to the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture. It was a powerful statement. They replaced a photo op with the president with an education about the Black experience in America. Curry also took a stand against his own sponsors. The CEO of Under Armour, Kevin Plank, called Trump a real asset to the country. Curry did not stay silent. He said he agreed with that description if you remove the ET. It was clever, it was cutting, and it showed that Curry was willing to risk his endorsement deals to stand up for his values. That was rare in professional sports. Most athletes protected their brand at all costs. Curry put his principles first. He later said the experience taught the league about the power of their voice. The Warriors were on the same page. They supported each other, and they showed that teams could take collective action. Steve Kerr brought a unique perspective. His father had been murdered in 1984 while serving as a university president in Beirut. Steve grew up understanding the cost of violence. He grew up valuing diplomacy and empathy. So when Trump signed an executive order in 2017 banning travel from several Muslim-majority countries, Kerr was furious. He called it a fear-mongering exercise. He said it went against American principles of inclusion, but Kerr's anger reached a peak when Trump went after NFL players. Players were kneeling during the national anthem to protest police brutality. Trump called them sons of bitches. He said they should be fired. Kerr said that comment was as bad as anything Trump had ever said. He defended the right to peaceful protest. He called it a hallmark of the country. He said Trump was making it impossible to honor the institution of the presidency because his actions were so divisive. Kerr was not just reacting, he was consistent. He spoke out repeatedly over 4 years, and in 2024, he took his message to the Democratic National Convention. He stood on stage and gave a speech about leadership. He said leaders must tell the truth. He said they must show dignity. Then he used the language of basketball. He referenced Stephen Curry's night-night gesture. It is what Curry does when he hits a big shot and the game is over. Kerr said it was time to tell Trump night-night. The crowd went wild. Kerr also talked about the USA men's Olympic basketball team. He had coached them to a gold medal in Paris. He said the team put aside egos and played for something bigger. He said that was what the country needed to do. Greg Popovich did not hold anything back. When Trump won the 2016 election, Popovich told reporters he was sick to his stomach. He compared it to the fall of Rome. He said a cloud of paranoia and surrealism had settled over the country, and he blamed Trump personally. Popovich said Trump treated the presidency like a game show. He said everything began and ended with Trump's ego. He said Trump's public statements were disingenuous, cynical, and fake. He said Trump's behavior was dangerous to American institutions. The anger boiled over in 2017 during the Spurs Media Day. Popovich launched into a 21-minute speech. Reporters asked him about Trump's attacks on NFL players and NASCAR driver Bubba Wallace. Popovich unloaded. He said the country had become an embarrassment to the world. He said Trump's belief that anthem protests dishonored the flag was delusional. But Popovich did not stop there. He did something rare for a white coach. He acknowledged his own privilege. He said if you were born white, you automatically have a monstrous advantage in American society. He said white people needed to recognize that. He said Trump was ignoring systemic racism. Popovich also used humor to make his point. In 2019, reporters asked him about the Spurs losing streak. Popovich joked that it was a witch hunt. He said he saw treasonous behavior. He was mocking Trump's language. He was showing how absurd it sounded. It was parody as protest. Popovich also called Trump a soulless coward. He called him a pathological liar. Those were not statements made in anger. Popovich meant them. He believed Trump lacked the character to lead. The combined weight of these 5 voices changed the NBA. The league had always been cautious about politics, but the players and coaches forced the league to take a stand. Commissioner Adam Silver had told players in 2014 not to become billboards for political causes, but by 2016, he was asking for their input. The relationship flipped. Players were no longer just employees. They were partners. They had power, and they used it. In 2020, the NBA created the playoff bubble in Orlando. It was during the pandemic. It was also during a national reckoning over the murder of George Floyd. The league painted Black Lives Matter on the courts. They let players replace their names on jerseys with social justice messages. It was unprecedented. Sports and activism were no longer separate. Trump hated it. He said the NBA was too political. He said their ratings were falling because of it. The data told a different story. Yes, ratings were down, but they had been falling since 2011. Streaming was replacing cable. The decline had nothing to do with Black Lives Matter, but the narrative stuck with Trump's base. A poll showed that 70% of Republicans were less likely to watch sports because of racial justice protests, but 61% of Democrats said the protests had no impact on their viewing habits. The divide was political, not about the sport itself. The transformation was called the fifth wave of activism. It was collective, it was institutional, it was strategic, and it was led by the biggest stars in the league. LeBron, Kareem, Curry, Kerr, and Popovich were not just athletes and coaches. They became truth tellers. They became constitutional guardians. They used their cultural capital to challenge a sitting president, and they refused to back down. Their motivations were different but aligned. LeBron believed in unity. He believed sports brought people together across race and class. Kareem believed in the Constitution. He saw Trump attacking the First Amendment and the 14th Amendment. Curry believed in symbolism. He understood that actions like visiting the White House carried meaning. Kerr believed in truth and dignity. He believed leaders should be honest, empathetic, and inclusive. Popovich believed in moral courage. He believed people in power had a responsibility to call out injustice. Together, they forced the NBA to evolve. The league went from corporate neutrality to corporate activism. It went from telling players to stay quiet to amplifying their voices. It went from traditional deference to the presidency to open confrontation. The 2020 bubble was the culmination. It was action over symbolism. It was proof that the league had fundamentally changed. Athletes had spent decades being told to shut up and dribble. They were told their opinions did not matter. But LeBron, Kareem, Curry, Kerr, and Popovich refused. They spoke out. They organized. They used their platforms to challenge the most powerful person in the world. And they won. Not because Trump left office, but because they changed the conversation. They showed that athletes could be activists. They showed that sports could be political. And they showed that silence was not an option. They did not hate Donald Trump for who he was. They hated what he stood for. They hated the divisiveness. They hated the attacks on the press. They hated the fear-mongering. They hated the lies. They hated the racism. They hated the lack of dignity. And they hated that he used sports as a tool to tear the country apart. So they fought back with tweets, with speeches, with op-eds, with symbolic gestures, and with institutional change. They turned the NBA into a vanguard of resistance. They transformed the role of the athlete from entertainer to advocate, and they left a legacy that will define the league for generations. The fifth wave was not just about one presidency. It was about the power of speaking truth to power. It was about refusing to stay silent in the face of injustice. And it was about 5 legends who decided that their voices mattered more than their comfort.